The winter sun sank over San Francisco, its faint glow reflecting off the rain-soaked streets. Inside a towering glass office, Charlotte Collins signed the last document of the day. To the world, she was a legend, a self-made billionaire who built her empire from nothing. But behind the boardroom confidence was a mother barely holding on. Her daughter, Ava, once vibrant and full of laughter, had been paralyzed in a car accident 2 years ago. No amount of money, doctors, or technology had restored what was lost. Ava was 19, bright, artistic, and once unstoppable. She had dreamed of studying art in Paris, of painting sunsets in Tuscany, but the accident had stolen her freedom and dimmed her spark. Her wheelchair confined her to silence, and though she forced smiles for her mother's sake, her eyes carried the dull ache of someone who had forgotten how to dream. Charlotte would have traded every dollar she had just to see her daughter walk again. Despite countless specialists, experimental therapies, and endless flights across the country, hope never came. Their home, a mansion filled with marble and silence, had become a museum of memories. Charlotte drowned herself in work, while Ava drifted through long, lonely days, her friends slowly disappearing, unable to face the quiet sorrow that surrounded her. But fate, as it often does, intervened when least expected. It happened one stormy afternoon. Charlotte's luxury car sputtered and died on a narrow street near an old industrial block. Rain poured in sheets, thunder rumbling in the distance. With Ava sitting quietly beside her, Charlotte pulled over near a small garage whose flickering neon sign barely cut through the gray. She sighed, grabbed her umbrella, and stepped out. The garage was nothing like the polished world she knew. It smelled of oil and steel, the air thick with the hum of machinery. A young mechanic was bent over the hood of a rusted car, sleeves rolled to his elbows, his hands dark with grease. When he noticed her, he straightened, wiped his palms on a rag, and offered a calm, steady smile. "Car trouble?" he asked, his voice low and kind. Charlotte nodded, explaining briefly. The man, Lucas Reed, followed her outside, tools in hand. Ava watched him from the car, her expression distant until his gaze met hers. He noticed a folded wheelchair in the back seat, but didn't look away in pity. His eyes held warmth, curiosity, as if he saw her, not her condition. For the first time in months, Ava didn't feel invisible. Rain hammered down as Lucas worked. His movements were practiced and precise. Charlotte observed silently, surprised by his quiet confidence. When he closed the hood, he crouched slightly, glancing again at the wheelchair. "Is your chair giving you trouble too?" he asked gently. Ava blinked, startled. People rarely mentioned the chair, afraid to offend her. But his tone wasn't pitying. It was practical, genuine. "It's old," she said softly. Lucas smiled faintly. "Mind if I take a look?" Charlotte opened her mouth to refuse, but Ava hesitated, then nodded. Lucas knelt beside the chair, examining its bent frame and worn wheels. "Seen better days," he murmured. Then, with quiet conviction, he added, "I could fix it, maybe even make it better." The words hung in the air, simple yet profound. Charlotte wanted to dismiss the idea. What could a mechanic know about medical equipment? But when she looked at Ava, she saw something she hadn't seen in 2 years, a spark of hope. So she stayed silent. Lucas carried the chair into his small garage. The metal scraped softly against the floor as he studied it under the dim light. To him, it wasn't just a broken object. It was a challenge, a chance to rebuild something that mattered. "Tell me," he said to Ava, "what's hardest about using it?" His questions weren't technical or distant. They were thoughtful, about comfort, pain, and independence. Ava answered hesitantly at first, then more openly, surprised at how much he listened. Charlotte watched from the corner, her arms folded, torn between skepticism and awe. Lucas worked late into the night, sketching ideas on scraps of paper, muttering to himself about weight balance and mobility. He scavenged parts, a bicycle chain here, a piece of car suspension there, and slowly began crafting something new. It wasn't just a repair, it was a reinvention. When Charlotte and Ava returned the next day, he greeted them with that same quiet smile and rolled up his sleeves. Each day became a ritual. Rain or shine, they came to the garage. Lucas tinkered, tested, and rebuilt the chair piece by piece. He asked Ava to try different adjustments, to tell him what felt right and what didn't. And slowly, something extraordinary began to happen. Ava laughed again. At first, just soft chuckles at Lucas's clumsy jokes or when he smeared grease across his cheek. But laughter nonetheless, bright and alive, echoing off the concrete walls. Charlotte stood in the background, her throat tightening every time she heard that sound. She had spent millions trying to restore her daughter's body, but this young man, with nothing but a wrench and kindness, was restoring her soul. Over the next few weeks, the chair began to take shape. It was lighter, sleeker, and sturdier than before, a blend of creativity and heart. Lucas designed it to support Ava's muscles and encourage small movements, every detail tailored to her needs. One afternoon, a piece of metal snapped during a test, sparks flying across the floor. Charlotte gasped, but Lucas only smiled. "Guess I'll have to make it stronger," he said. Ava laughed, her eyes shining with admiration. For her, that moment wasn't a failure. It was proof that someone believed she was worth trying for. Each visit brought them closer. Lucas treated Ava as an equal, involving her in every decision, listening to her ideas. For the first time in years, she felt capable, not a patient, but a partner. And Charlotte, watching from the sidelines, began to feel something she hadn't dared to in so long: hope. By the third week, the prototype was nearly complete. Lucas had added subtle support bars to help Ava practice standing, something no doctor had dared suggest. When he showed her, her breath caught in disbelief. "You're stronger than you think," he whispered. Charlotte turned away, tears in her eyes. He had built more than a chair. He had built courage. The day of truth arrived beneath a sky washed clean by dawn. Sunlight spilled through the dusty garage windows, striking the gleaming metal of Lucas's final creation. The new wheelchair that wasn't just a chair anymore, but promise forged by faith and determination. Lucas ran his fingers along the frame, tightening one last bolt. Every inch of it told a story of patience, trial, failure, and relentless hope. He wiped his hands, his heart racing as Charlotte's car pulled up outside. Ava rolled in, nervous yet glowing. For weeks, she had watched the project grow from broken scraps into something almost magical. Her mother stood beside her, silent, trembling with restrained anticipation. Lucas smiled softly. "You ready?" Ava swallowed hard, nodding. Her old wheelchair creaked as Lucas gently helped her transfer into the new one. It felt different, balanced, almost alive beneath her. Every contour fit her perfectly. No pressure. Lucas said quietly, meeting her gaze, "Just one step at a time." His voice was calm, steady, the kind of voice that could silence fear. Ava's heart thudded in her chest. She placed her hands on the side supports, her breath quickening. Charlotte stood behind her, her elegant fingers clutched tightly together, afraid to hope too much, afraid to lose it all again. And then Ava pushed. At first, nothing. Her arms trembled, her body shaking with effort. Then, slowly, agonizingly, her knees straightened. Charlotte gasped, her heart stopping as Ava's weight shifted upward. And there she was, standing. It wasn't perfect or graceful, but she was on her feet, for the first time in nearly 2 years. The room fell silent. Charlotte's hands flew to her mouth as tears blurred her vision. Lucas stood frozen beside Ava, his eyes wide, his breath caught between disbelief and pride. Ava looked down at her legs, her lips trembling. "I'm standing," she whispered, half laughing, half crying. Lucas's smile deepened. "You are." He adjusted the controls, steadying her. "Now let's try one step." Her body wobbled, unsteady. Her muscles ached, but she didn't stop. She lifted one foot just a few inches and set it down again. The sound of her shoe meeting the floor echoed like thunder through the small garage. Charlotte broke. She sobbed openly, rushing forward, her arms wrapping around her daughter as Ava let out a choked laugh. "I can walk," Ava whispered, the words trembling with wonder. "I can walk." Charlotte held her close, shaking, tears wetting both their faces. "You've given me my daughter back," she cried into Ava's hair. "You've given her life again." Lucas stepped back quietly, his throat tight. It wasn't his moment. It was theirs. But in their tears and that fragile embrace, he felt the weight of every sleepless night and every cut on his hands dissolve into joy. News of the miracle spread quickly. What began as a small story in the neighborhood soon reached the local press. Mechanic helps billionaire's paralyzed daughter walk again. Crowds gathered outside the garage. Cameras flashing, reporters eager to capture the story of the young man who did what the world's richest doctors could not. But Lucas wanted no fame. When Charlotte offered him money, he refused. "You've already paid me," he said simply. "I got to see her walk." Ava's recovery continued steadily. Every day, she grew stronger, physically and emotionally. She practiced walking for hours, her laughter echoing through the garage. Lucas stood beside her, patient, guiding, cheering her on with every wobbly step. Their bond deepened, born not from sympathy, but from understanding. Lucas saw in Ava a fighter. Ava saw in him a rare kind of strength, the quiet kind that heals without asking for praise. Charlotte, too, began to change. The woman who had once measured her worth in profits and power now measured in moments, in the way her daughter smiled again, in the way the garage had become a temple of hope. She often found herself standing in the doorway, watching them work together, silently thanking the universe for the day her car broke down in the rain. Weeks passed. Ava could now walk across the small workshop unassisted, her steps still careful but sure. She loved visiting the garage, not just for practice, but for peace. It had become a second home, filled with laughter and light instead of sterile machines and pity. Lucas continued tinkering, improving the design, helping others who came to him after hearing Ava's story. Veterans, children, ordinary people with broken chairs and broken hopes, all found their way to his humble shop. He never charged them what his work was worth. To him, each project was another chance to restore dignity, to prove that compassion could achieve what money alone could not. One afternoon, months later, Ava walked into the garage on her own. No crutches, no assistance. Her movements were fluid, her steps confident. Lucas looked up from his workbench, and their eyes met. "Hey," she said softly, smiling. "Hey yourself," he replied, that familiar spark of warmth in his eyes. For a moment, they simply stood there, two souls bound by a miracle forged not by wealth or science, but by humanity. Charlotte joined them, her eyes shining as she watched her daughter move freely. "I don't think I'll ever be able to thank you enough," she told Lucas. He shook his head. "You already have. Just seeing her smile, that's everything." Ava laughed softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You didn't just fix a chair, Lucas. You fixed me." He looked at her then, really looked, and smiled the quiet smile of a man who understood. "No," he said gently. "You did that yourself. I just gave you something to stand on." The garage filled with sunlight, warm and golden, like a blessing. The air carried no scent of despair now, only oil, steel, and hope. From that day forward, Ava and Charlotte dedicated part of their fortune to helping Lucas expand his work. Together, they built a foundation that provided custom mobility devices for those who couldn't afford them. They called it Reed's Hope. But beyond all the recognition, beyond the headlines and the applause, the real miracle remained simple: a young woman who could stand again and the humble mechanic who had believed she could. Every time Ava took a step, she carried that belief with her, a reminder that kindness, determination, and love could move mountains where power and money failed. And in that little garage in San Francisco, miracles didn't stop. They just kept beginning.